Serfs and noblemen. Before the Normans came, English people lived in small villages. Each family farmed its own little piece of land. Each village had a big open area called the common ground, where every family could put sheep, cows, or pigs out to pasture. Each village had its own sheriff or police officer who made sure that the law was kept. When there was fighting to be done, the farmers of England banded together to do it, and the King of England was their war leader, who led them into battle against invaders. But William the Conqueror had different ideas. William thought that the king was more than just a war leader. Instead, William believed that the king owned the land that he ruled. So when William was crowned king, he claimed all the land of England as his own. And he gave his favorite knights, the ones who had fought for him in the Battle of Hastings, pieces of England for their own. In exchange for this land, the knights had to promise to give William money to keep his army strong, and to serve in William's army whenever he called them to come and join him in a fight. The wealthy knights who settled down on these pieces of land were called lords, and they gave smaller parts of their land away to other knights who would fight for them, and to English farmers called peasants or serfs. In exchange for these little farms, the peasants had to promise to give part of everything they raised to their lord. So the peasants gave the lords food, and the lords gave the peasants land. The lords gave the knights land, and the knights promised to serve the lords. The lords gave the king service in his army and paid him taxes, and the king gave the lords land and castles. This way of living was called feudalism. Every person in England served someone else, and the person that they served had a duty to give them back something in exchange. Feudalism was a Norman way of life, and after the Norman invasion, it became an English way of life as well. What would your life be like if you were a serf? You spend your days caring for animals, working in the fields, harvesting fruit and nuts, mending harnesses, making tools out of wood and iron, and tending beehives. Every week, you send some of your animals, vegetables, fruit, nuts, and honey to the castle for the lord and his family. The lord who owns your land can't ever force you to leave. You have the right to live there for the rest of your life. You live in a house with one room. The walls are made out of mud and twigs, and the roof is made of bundles of straw called thatch. The dirt floor is spread with straw too, with a fireplace right in the middle of it, and a hole cut in the roof to let the smoke out. Your bed is a pile of leaves near the fire. Your whole family sleeps in it with you. So do your pigs and chickens. They are too valuable to leave outside at night, so you bring them into the house when it gets dark. You don't get to eat meat very often unless you catch some fish from the stream nearby. But you have plenty of vegetables and lots of grain, which you make into gruel, like runny oatmeal, and heavy, dark loaves of bread. And in the summer there is honey from your beehives, and apples, blackberries, and walnuts from the trees and bushes that grow around your village. Now imagine that you live in a lord's family. You live in a huge stone house, a castle. Bright embroidered hangings called tapestries cover the stone walls of your rooms, and rugs make the cold floor warm. Lavender, rosemary, and other sweet herbs lie on the floor. When you step on them, good smells rise up. You spend most of your time in the largest room of the castle, the great hall, where logs burn on a huge fireplace and oil lamps line the walls. Your meals start with turnip and parsnip soup, chicken broth, or onion and leek soup. For a main course, you might eat beef, pork, eels, or pigeons, along with vegetables, salads of flower petals, fruit, cheese, bread, and plenty of wine and beer. Your cook spends hours making the food look as good as it tastes. He makes cakes shaped like castles, with little flags flying from the towers. Bread carved into warships floating on gravy seas, pies with top crusts that open up so that songbirds can fly out, and boar intestines, dried fruit carved into long strips with raspberry sauce, piled under the stomach of a tiny pastry boar. Your feasts last for hours, with musicians, jugglers, acrobats, and jesters performing for you while you eat. On special occasions, you eat off silver plates, but usually you eat your food off a huge slice of hard bread that soaks up all the extra grease. And you use your knife and your fingers to eat, because forks haven't been invented yet. You have a good life, but you hope that no foreign armies ever invade England, because if they do, you'll have to leave your comfortable castle, strap on your armor, and head off to war. Stone castles. When William first gave parts of England away to his knights, the English peasants were furious. They had always lived on their own land, grown their own food, and taken care of themselves. But now these foreign soldiers were all over the place, claiming England for themselves and telling the English farmers what to do. So the English peasants rioted. They disobeyed their Norman overlords, threw rocks at their horses, and tried to burn their wooden houses. So the Normans began to build heavy stone castles instead. These castles were often on the tops of hills surrounded by moats and thick stone walls. They were the first English buildings made of stone. William and Anne lived in one of these stone castles. It was built by their grandfather, who fought for William the Conqueror himself. Now their father is away, fighting in a war for the king, and their mother is supervising the servants, who are preserving fruit and honey for the winter. Their nurse has decided to have a little nap. "Run off and play for a bit," she tells them, "and leave me in peace." So William and Anne decide to play hide and seek. They go up to their room, a small stone chamber on the second floor of the castle, to start their game. Anne is it. She leans against the thick windowsill, covers her eyes, and starts to count to 50. She hears William's feet run away down the hallway. Anne opens her eyes and looks out the window. From the high hill where the castle sits, she can see a whole patchwork of fields and trees, little strips of gold wheat with tiny peasants harvesting it, strips of lighter green where miniature cows and sheep are grazing, and thick dark strips of forest. Anne goes to the door of their room and looks down the hall both ways. Where has William gone? She runs down the hallway towards the arched doorway at the far end. This doorway leads into the keep, the square tower that stands at the center of the castle. The keep has its own bedrooms, weapon rooms, and cellars with food stored in them. If the castle is ever attacked, everyone can go into the keep and bar themselves in. Inside the tower, a spiral staircase leads both up and down. Anne hears feet running overhead. She climbs up and up. The stairs turn so sharply that she can only see 2 or 3 steps ahead of her in the light that comes through the narrow windows. The windows are as tall as she is, but barely as wide as her hand, just wide enough to shoot arrows through. Anne comes out onto the top of the tower, but William has already disappeared. He has run back down the stairs on the other side of the tower. Anne skips across the top of the tower, which is like a huge flat courtyard with a wall all around it. The wall is too tall for Anne to see over, but it has notches in it so that an archer can lean through the wall and shoot at anyone attacking below. Anne stops at one of the notches and leans forward to look far, far down. A strong wind whirls past her. Below her is the castle's outer wall, 8 feet wide, thicker than her father is tall, and the castle's front gate. The gate has a wide wooden gate, a portcullis, suspended over top of it. If enemies come to the castle, the portcullis can be dropped down to close the gate. Anne can see the guard who keeps the portcullis, leaning against the top of the wall, drowsing in the warm sunshine. She sees someone standing next to the guard, waving up at her. It's William. He has run down the keep, through the courtyard of the castle, and up onto the top of the castle walls. Anne darts for the stair and runs back down the cool stone spiral as fast as she can. She rushes out of the bottom door of the tower into the castle courtyard. The castle walls tower high over her. All around her are smaller buildings of the castle, the kitchen tower, the prison tower, the outdoor laundry, and the guardrobe, the outhouse. She looks up toward the portcullis, but William is gone. She darts across to the kitchen tower and pulls its heavy door open, straining her shoulders against it. A wave of heat hits her face. A huge fire is burning in the fireplace, and 2 hindquarters of beef are roasting over it on a spit. A little boy, not much older than she is turning the spit by its wooden handle. He is sweating and hot, but he's turning the spit with his right hand and eating a piece of candied fruit with his left. Her mother must have given him some fruit. At the huge wooden table in the center of the kitchen, the cook is making pastry for a pie. One of her helpers is plucking the feathers from a pheasant, and another is rubbing the dirty dishes with sand to clean them. But William isn't there. She lets the door close and looks around the courtyard. Where is William? She crosses over to the outdoor laundry. On the flat stone platform, the laundresses are pouring liquid soap over the dirty clothes and pounding them with a bat in a huge barrel. Anne wrinkles her nose. The soap is made out of animal fat and wood ash. It smells bad. The sheets will smell better after they've been laid out in the sun to dry, and then folded up with lavender and dried chamomile. She peers behind the platform. No William. Anne goes over the little stone building behind the laundresses, the garderobe. She pulls the garderobe door open. A rat scuttles out of sight underneath the stone toilets. The toilets have holes that lead down into a cesspit far beneath the castle. This time, Anne doesn't just wrinkle her nose, she holds it closed so that she can't smell the stink coming up from the cesspit. She pushes the door shut again and looks around again. A movement on the other side of the kitchen garden catches her eye. Something is sticking up from behind the low wooden fence. It is the back of William's robe. He must think that he's invisible. She sneaks around the back of the garden. There he is, lying flat on his stomach. She jumps on him, and he shrieks. The game of hide and seek is over.